welcome each and every one of you and appreciate you for joining the call. We are really excited to have you here as we officially kick off our program. And over the next few days, you'll get the opportunity to be exposed to, practical learning challenges and, engage with yourselves. We've designed this program to ensure that at the end, you've been able to build your own executive dashboard, work on a real business case, and create a portfolio worthy project so that you get the experience of what it's like being a data analyst. So before we proceed, I would like us to do a quick introduction. For some of you who are on the group chat, you might have introductions, but I think some of us are quite shy and we've not introduced ourselves on the WhatsApp group. So I'll randomly call on few persons for the sake of time. Please unmute your mic and use yourself, get your name. Kindly state your name, your location, your profession, and expectations for. All right. So I'll pick Mini Terietu. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly.
All right, thank you. My name is actually Doreen Musimenta Terietu. The mine is more of a nickname. Yeah, I introduced myself on the group actually with a picture. An HR professional from Uganda. And this is my first step into analysis, and I would like to go all the way to a master in data science. I just want to take a sneak peek through this avenue. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. All the way from Uganda. Mesoma Geraldine. Mesoma, kindly unmute and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Miss Soma Geraldine Wazuba. I currently stay in Enugu, Nigeria. I'm a student, a pharmacy student, and I think I have been, like just say, delving into data analysis, like there's like on the beginner level scale. So I just wanted to like take this challenge to like see what goes in for me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mesoma, for sharing that as well. Here you'll get opportunity to see the day-to-day life of an actual data analyst. Pick this time for gender balance. We have Eddie Otieno. Eddie, kindly unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eddie. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm a researcher, so I want to transition to data analytics. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eddie. Eddie, we did not get your expectation.
I expect to network with like-minded individuals and to also grow in this field.
Thank you for sharing, Eddie. I mean, it's obvious this is truly an international program because we have people from nearly all of Africa, from West Africa, we have from East Africa. Welcome. Last but not the least, I'm going to go with Kazim Olakunle. Kazim, kindly unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Kazim Malakule. I'm a technical person, a security analyst, I'm joining the data analysis training track to um, upskill myself and see what opportunity that gives me in the near future. And I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Kazim. It's a pleasure having you here as well. All right. So moving on, I would briefly, for the sake of time, briefly discuss or tell you guys about NextHive, which is the organization coordinating this program. And NextHive is a Pan-African, obviously, with the caliber of people we have on this call. We've seen people from Uganda and Kenya. So NextHive is a truly Pan-African tech accelerator ecosystem focused on helping people learn, build, collaborate, and get recognized. And if you are in the professional space, you notice that there are lots of learning platforms, but you see that these platforms focus mainly on certificates and the rest. But NextHive emphasizes the importance of practical skills and real world problem solving. And that's one of the reasons why at the end of this program, you get to have at least one portfolio worthy project. So you learn by working on projects, collaborating with others, and building verifiable portfolios, something that you can use to demonstrate your skills. Founders, HR, CEOs, and the rest can verify your portfolio projects by checking it online. So the analyst challenge is actually part of this approach, giving you the opportunity to develop and demonstrate practical data analytics skill. I saw someone's hand up. I don't know if they have any question, but if you do, you can kindly raise that again. All right, I'll take that as a mistake. So let's proceed. I would like to call on Kenneth, who will be taking us, facilitating this experience. Kenneth, over to you. Kindly take us on to this learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Kingsley, and good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. I'm glad to um, facilitate this session. There are some of you who have been with us for some while now. I can recognize, sorry if I miss your name, Tot. You raised your hand a while ago. Yeah, I can recognize you because you've participated in one of our trainings, I remember. And then for the new individuals, those coming to know us for the first time, we are happy to meet you and also learn and grow with you together. Kingsley has already set the context for the challenge. And to be very sincere with you, I would say throughout these 4 days, let's do our best to be real. Being real means that this is you coming to learn to see the real world experience. It's not a typical recorded tutorial in which in many of those cases you see that the instructor may have recorded, re-recorded, and re-recorded again, trying to keep things perfect. That is not what we are trying to do. We are trying to expose you to what it feels indeed to wake up each day and turn on your device and start working as a data analyst. And as a matter of fact, everything we are going to do is going to flow through a natural. I just want you to enjoy the flow. For example, there is no PowerPoint to share. The data set we are using is real data set, not fabricated. And just to add to that, I can guarantee you that the dataset that we'll be working with for this project, yeah, I downloaded it yesterday evening. That's to let you know that I want it to be a real double in, figure it out experience for you. It's not like we are showing you something we've worked on before over and over again. And then, no. We want you to have that real life real experience and exposure. And for me, if I'm to advise, you should see this as try your best to enjoy the process. Try your best to enjoy the process, because the process is also as important as the destination. So those are the few words I would like to lead with. And for many, some of us may have the wrong conception that um, data analysis is all about building reports and dashboards with Power BI. I will prove you wrong today. I'll prove you wrong today. And sorry, before we proceed, I would like to mention that this call is being recorded and it will be shared across our platforms, and also for those who are not able to join in real time, so that they can also catch up, since this is a 4-day program, right? So please confirm if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen now? Sorry, can anyone unmute? And all right, thank you for that. All right. Okay, so
Yes, we can see.
all right, thank you, Dorothy. I think we should start from the easiest spot. We've already shared the challenge case with you, but I will go through it because I know it came barely an hour before the session, so I will just run us through it. It's a 4-day program, 90 minutes each day, which has already started. And of course, we are targeting beginners. If today is your first time ever working on a project, or seeing and watching the tutorial or whatever, maybe this is your very first time, we are happy to start it with you. So you are highly welcome. And then let's talk about the challenge. So you put yourself in the shoe of a data analyst, and bear in mind that this, what you learn from this class, will not only help you become a data analyst, it's a stepping stone into any other data related role, data engineer, data scientist, mention them, right? But for the sake of this session, put yourself in the shoes of an analyst. You just joined a company called Olist, and Olist is a real company. You can browse them online. It's a Brazilian marketplace connecting small businesses with customers through e-commerce and logistics. Typical, if you're a Nigerian, you could liken them to Jumia. Okay, let me use a more general one, maybe Temu or any other marketplace. It's important to distinguish between marketplace and e-commerce. A marketplace is more like a super app where e-commerce activities take place, right? So within a marketplace, you are going to see different sellers. The company facilitating a marketplace is more like pioneering multiple e-commerce setups within its ecosystem, right? It's good to understand this because it's part of understanding the clients you'll be working on for. Now, as a growing marketplace, the management wants to, they have specific questions. They want to understand what operations look like in the organization, right? Things like, are sales growing, which products and markets are driving growth, among others. And yes, they already have the data. Imagine a marketplace whereby you have the company, we have the company, and which is the management in this context, and then you have the other arm of the ecosystem, which is the sellers, and then also the buyers. So the company is like the connection, the link between the buyers and the sellers. And the goal of every company in that situation is to make sure that customer experience is enhanced, to make sure that customer experience from both sides, both the buyer and the seller, right? And as much as possible to optimize processes. Now, what they have the data already, but this data, as with many real life scenarios, is scattered across different systems. You have the customer, there's the CRM system that contains records of customer data. You have the the data of sellers. You have the order fulfillment, that's a order and fulfillment database, the database that handles orders, order placements, and other among others. And you will also find other data sets covering different other aspects of the platform, of the operation. Now they don't have one specific place where they can sit and see all these things connecting together. Each department has its own silos, and then this is exactly what management wants to look into, because when you have those silos, such silos or such a setup, it will be hard to have a clear visibility into business operations. So I've set enough context for us to understand. Now your role is that you are a data analyst joining the operations team, and your role is to build a system that shines visibility into this organization's operations, and they have prepared a set of key questions for you to answer through your analysis. It is not a case of building machine learning model. No, you are to answer questions based on talk about what has happened, right? Not what will happen, right? Now, about the data set, I've already said that it's coming from OList, which contains a marketplace data for transactions between 2016 and 2018, right? You have data on orders, customers, products, sellers, order items, payments, reviews from customers, delivery rates, among others. So the goal here is we are going to follow a path, right? You try to not just to build charts, but to understand the business, understand the challenge, prepare your data, model it, analyze, explain, and then recommend. That's typically what a data analyst does. So we've already shared this document with you. You can go there and download. The resources page contains both this very document and also the data set you'll be using for this challenge. And let's go straight to the to the brief. We've already spent 22 minutes, so I'll be as fast as possible. So the management wants a clear view into the marketplace performance, and they want you to look into their data and answer 5 key business questions. The first one is, how is the marketplace performing? The second one is, what is driving sales performance? The third one is, how well is Olist delivering orders? The fourth one is, what is happening to customer satisfaction? And the fifth one is, where should management focus its attention? Right? And your mission is that by the end, you should be able to answer this question. Imagine yourself standing before the management to answer question related to this challenge, right? This project. That means if you were sitting in front of the management today, you should be able to tell them about the health of their marketplace and what they should pay attention to, and not just to say it, but to back it up, show supporting evidence from the data, from their business data. That's the whole picture. To mention, please, if at any point you stop hearing me, kindly unmute. One of you can unmute and draw my attention, right? Now, not to make it look like this is a made-up business challenge, I will share with you a typical real-world business brief. I had to blur out the company because this is a sensitive business information, but then this is a brief you could receive as a data analyst. If you are lucky enough, the client would sit down and draft the plan for you, what exactly they want to see. But it's not always that the case. There are other times that you need to call for a meeting. They may have the problem, but they may not know the right way, maybe the exact thing they want from your analysis, from your project. So you now sit with them, identify the metrics, the key performance indicators, the actual areas or questions they want you to use their data to answer. So in this case, we're just lucky enough to have this coming from a team that already has a strong technical experts among them, right? So the data is coming from different sources. This one is coming from SFA. That's a Salesforce. It's a Salesforce system, right? This one is coming from ERP. This very one is mostly the company in this case is an FM, fast-moving consumer goods, right? So they have distributors spread across the country, and then that's where the SFA comes from. Then they also have the ERP. The ERP is more like the internal operations. So you can see that this one contains the demand and the execution data. This one contains financial and supply chain data. So this is the supply and financial data, right? Now, they have shown you the brief, what they want, right? The KPI, what is being measured, formula, and so on, and where you find the data. But pointing you to where you find the data can only makes your job a bit easier, but not fully easier, because when you go to the database, you are going to see hundreds of tables. You are going to see hundreds of tables of varying sizes. And your job as the analyst is to, first of all, where do you even start? Where do you even start analyzing? Where do you even start from? Right? How do you even have a sense of, you are not the developer that built the app, the system. For example, Sage has hundreds of tables, and not just that, Sage also has add-ons from management, from manufacturing, from order and fulfillment, from inventory control, from different other aspects, from account receivable, among others. So where do you start exactly? In the course of this project, you are going to see it. I'm just using this to show you that this is a typical real-world brief. This is a typical real-world brief. I repeat it to let you know that these are real, because many of the times when we watch tutorials, we get handed over maybe an Excel file. Yeah, we'll use some Excel files for this project because this is a very beginner friendly one, but in real world scenario, it's not always the case. So the data is not yet prepared for you. You have to be one to prepare it, figure out where they come from, how you join them, and so on and so forth. So that's it about the intro. And then let me check if I'm missing anything. And then as part of how this activity will go, we'll have opportunity to collaborate, right? That means after every session, every evening session, you receive an email with the challenge for the day. Some aspect of it will require you to work together. And the collaboration is going to take place on NextHive. And you are going to create what is called a hive. So the name and the product are together. So you're going to create something called a hive. And then this is where you now join this is where you now form your own clusters, teams to work on the project. And then you also submit it through the submission portal still on NextHive, right? So we'll review it and share with you feedback, right? So that's how it will go. Now, I've shared a lot, and let me open Power BI. We are using Power BI for this project. And why Power BI? Well, of course, why not Power BI? If you are in this part of the world, so typically, in many of the cases, organizations and companies already have some form of technological setup that they have within that they use. For example, if you're in a company that is more like Google fan, you use tools like Google Looker Studio. If your own company is more like Sage fans, you are going to use something like Tableau, among others. But in many cases, Power BI dominates because Microsoft is the primary tool that most organizations use. Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Excel, and so many other things. So they may just want to have everything within their company. Within their subscription license they're already using. All right. Now, this is Power BI, and Power BI, the B idea is for business intelligence. Power is a term for Microsoft data-related products, right? So this time around, the B idea is for business intelligence. And what is business intelligence? Business intelligence is all about the process of helping organizations to gain insights, data-driven insights into their business operations. They will use data to understand operations and make decisions without relying on gut feeling, right? So then the data set we are going to use, I have hinted on that. We have the product. Sorry, this is the main one. This is orders. This is the orders. I think I have to zoom my screen. Okay, so we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. This is a picture of that. This is a full picture, right? There are about 9 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there are 8 of them. The ninth one is more like a data that helps because this is a Brazilian data set. So it's just like a translation file for you, right? Okay, so this is like the full picture of what the ecosystem looks like, a database. What you see here, each of them represents a table. You can picture this as a database. Database is just a system of tables and relationships that define them alongside other security protocols. Your Excel workbook is a miniature database. It's not as robust as other systems, but it's a miniature database, mostly because it already has a list of tables within them. And when you define relationships between those tables, then you have gotten what is called a database, right? So this is a picture of a database, and this is called ERD, which is an entity relationship diagram. An entity relationship diagram lets you to see how different tables relate to each other, right? So before we go into that, let's talk about what a typical process workflow is in real-world analytical project. The first one, I've already elaborated on that, the fact that you are going to receive a brief with a question. It always begins with a question. They have a question they want to answer, and then somehow it's possible that the data already exists or the data does not yet exist. But let's assume that the data already exists, as in this case. So they have asked the question. If the question is very clear, then the next thing to look into now is how to gather the data, right? So the question, if you are taking notes, kindly take note, put this one down. We have the question, leading with the question, then how to gather. You have to gather your data from different sources, clean the data, right? Analyze, and then communicate insights. Those are the life cycle. Those are the different stages of the data and the analytical process. Leading with a question, gather your data, clean the data, analyze it, and then communicate findings or communicate insights. You communicate insights in form of maybe you are building a report, maybe or what we usually call a dashboard. It could be that you are presenting, maybe making it in the form of a presentation. It could be that you are going to publish it as an article or any other formats you want it to be. But the end goal is that the raw data you have has some information to tell management stakeholders, right? The interesting thing about data is that it shows you patterns. If you are a business, maybe establishment that has been in operation for years, definitely certain patterns will begin to emerge in terms of when is the most likely time that maybe we would maybe have more sales during the year, so that we can, if you don't know that, you may not be able to know how to position well, when to fill in your inventory, so that you don't run out of stock, right? So the patterns that emerge in data, it's not usually very clear to business owners, because number one, data in itself is very, very rough, very, very raw and vague. They are just rows, lines of interest filling up a table, right? So your job as the data analyst is now to help use this thing to make sense. And you can do it in form of maybe through the application of statistical analysis, or through visualizations, or through other means, right? Now, we have talked about the problem, that's the question that needs to be answered, right? But we just talked about it on a high level. So right now, I just told you, you have to answer your question, maybe the 5 key questions they want to ask, they have asked. But if we go deeper, you see that the questions are not yet clear, right? In terms of, I just highlighted them. How is the marketplace performing? It's a general, a very broad question. So as an analyst, you already know that they want you to see this, to give them the state of what is currently obtainable, maybe even in terms of order volume, products, sales value, total freight, sales trends. Those are the things that help you to understand what the marketplace performance looks like. So in this case, when you get a question like this, they just want to understand the scale and trajectory of the marketplace before making operational decisions. right? So that is an aspect of analysis called descriptive analysis, or analysis rather. In descriptive analysis, you are just giving them the status quo, telling them what is the raw facts, right? So I initially let us know that we are not going into prediction, right? Predictive analytics is another aspect of it, whereby you use data to talk about what will happen in the future. But in this case, we are using data to talk about what has happened. There is also another aspect of data analysis that has to do with prescriptive. You are prescribing solutions, right? Telling them, okay, prescribing solutions using data to tell them, okay, these are the intervention mechanisms you can use to solve an already known problem, right? And so on and so forth. So now we would, having gotten enough context, I will take a quick, just few minutes pause so that I will get your reactions so far and see if we are still together. So one of you can just unmute and tell me what you've picked so far from my short, not so short presentation. So if you do it fast, then we'll be able to move faster. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ramat Abdulmumin. With the little we've learned, I've been able to know that for me as a data analyst, I need to know that my data set will not always be given to me in the CSV form. So I will need to gather my data set. So the first thing I should have at the back of my mind is that I have to gather my data set. So I've been able to know that now that you discussed with us. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will pick another person. Agumbiade, can you unmute and let us know? Temitope, please. If you can still hear me, you can unmute and tell me maybe what you've learned from this very first round of the session. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think two things I've been able to understand is you talked about predictive and descriptive, and most times we just usually gather data and just work on it, but understanding the fact that what is the context that this particular organization needs from you, and also I think giving us a real-time data, like a data pulled out, I think you said yesterday, is also very, because at least be able to understand that these things we can provide solution to businesses, because it's not data analysis, business analysis, and the rest of the thing. So I think it's a good start for me and for every one of us.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks. So with that assurance, I can now proceed. All right. So this is Power BI. I've already told you what Power BI is, and this is what you get when you launch the home screen. Please, I don't expect you to. There are some of you that have different levels of strength in analysis, right? Please bear with me, because for the sake of those who are joining us for the first time, learning analysis for the first time, who are still very new, we may have to go lower than you expect, right? Now, the first one thing I would mention before I proceed is that in this program, there are two things I would want you to separate, because they are not the same. Analysis, analytical skill, and technical skill. There are two different things. Please take note. Analytical skill and technical skill. Technical skill is usually about your ability to use a tool. One of them is Power BI. Another one could be Excel. Another one could be Tableau. Another one could be Python. It could be NIME. There are so many of them. Those are technical. They are technical. But when you talk about analytical skills, it revolves around, it's a soft skill to start with. Curiosity, ability to ask questions, ability to see patterns, ability to identify trends and anomalies, ability to probe, right? To be able to deal with numbers. It's a skill on its own, and if you don't get this right, you may not know where you need to strengthen yourself, because if you join them together, you might feel overwhelmed, right? But if you separate them, yes, you know that I would have to develop my analytical skills, then my technical skills. If you ask me to choose between the two, I would choose both. But in order of preference, I would choose analytical skills first. Because over the course of my experience working in this field, tools have always changed. Started with Python, Tableau, NIME, Power BI, Excel, even Stata, even that's a Stata for people in the this thing, humanities and the rest. Stata, what's the other one? There are several of them. There was one I just deleted. I'm not sure I fully deleted it yesterday, the application. Today rather. That one is for health analytics. People in pharmacy use it and so on. So those are tools and they can always change. But analytical skills remain the same. Please bear it, keep it at the back of your mind. Know which one where you're currently struggling and know what to chase. So having said that, Power BI is just one of them. And we are going to use it because it's a very versatile one. It lets you to connect to different places, bring your data, model it, and I think and it's popular in the industry. So if you have the skill, you most likely your chances of getting into opportunities that require you to use it is higher, especially if you're in this part of the world. So the home screen here shows you different places where you can. This is a blank report. These are different sources where you can connect to. You can start with a blank report, one lake catalog, Excel workbook, SQL server. So you can start with sample data or get data from other sources. If I click on this, you'll see that it finally opens up for me. Now, let me show you different. Sorry, I'll close this one now. Let me show you different options that are available to you. Sorry. If I click on get data, you see that there are a lot of options I have here. More options. If I click on more, then it expands even further. Right. Close this. It expands even further. So you can see view more here. A lot of places where you can connect to. Someone introduced himself as I think was it I've forgotten, but you are into cybersecurity. Is it cybersecurity? I'm not sure. I'm not sure again. So you may be very conversant with different other sources of data. Maybe your application that you use is talking to a database somewhere, hosted on a remote server somewhere rather. That could be a source. Even ordinary websites, the tables on your website is a source. Power BI is versatile enough to connect to these different places and bring your data together. So for our case, for our sake, we are going to open our first data source, which is I've just shown you. I'll show you again. They are all CSV files. A CSV file is a comma separated value. It's just a very simple flat data set or data format. If I open it with VS Code, Visual Studio Code, you see what exactly it looks like. Let me do that. So it's called comma separated values. You'll see that everything in that CSV file is more about just using commas to separate. So you can see here, this is the header or the heading. We have the product category name, we have the product catalog, and then that's the name in English. And every other thing that follows are just more like the category name in the Brazilian language, I think Brazilian, I'm not sure again, then the corresponding name in English. So it's a very simple file, right? So that's the file format. There are many other formats you find. Many other formats. We have TSV. That one is tab separated value. Instead of using a comma, they now use a tab, right? There are other ones. You have what else? There are so many of them. There are other ones that are just even plain text and so on and so forth. So how do you now start? You first of all, knowing the type of data connection you do will depend on the type of data, right? If it's something living on a database, you can choose. Your first thing is to identify the. So, so in our case, this is a CSV file. Okay, now let's connect to that. Let's connect to that. The easiest way to do it is here. You can just come here, go straight and click on transform data. Just click on it, and it will launch for you Power Query. Power Query Editor is a powerful tool that lets you to connect to different data sources and fetch the data, transform it, right, so that you can use it for your analysis. So you can see that it has launched. You find Power Query in Microsoft Power BI, but you'll also find it in Excel. So the skill you learn here also translates. You can also use it in your, if you're analyzing data with Excel, or if you're within the Power BI ecosystem, Microsoft environment. So I've launched Power Query, and I have two windows now. This one is Power Query, this one is the main Power BI, right? So let's start with this one. This is where I'll connect to my source. Now, how will I identify? Everything here is blanked out because there is no source. You have the machine, but there is no fuel. So I'll come again, I'll now click on new source, right? Click on new source, and then select the type of source. We have Excel workbook, SQL server, analysis server, and so on. You could be tempted to click on this, but this will be wrong because our file is in CSV format. So I click on text/CSV, and then it takes me to where? It takes me to, let me connect to the file part. So I would come here. I saved the data somewhere, only the data set, right? So let me bring in the very first file here called order. What is that? Yeah, this is the orders data set. Let's open that. And click on next. It's connecting to the data source now. Now it has connected to the data source, and then there's a difference between connecting to a data source and modifying a data source. Building a data pipeline, usually if you're a beginner, you may just be tempted to open this file straight away and start modifying it directly. But that's not the best way to do it. The elegant way to do it is to build a transformation pipeline such that you can always change your source and the original data is not mutilated. So confirm that everything looks fine, that this is the file we are interested in. Yes. Okay. Now click on here. You can see load and transform data. I can just go on and load, but I want to transform data. Okay, so I will launch it. Now what do you see here? There are different columns here. If you are from data science background, you could call it features or variables, whatever. Or here, you could call it columns. The first column is order ID. Every table that could be joined to another table should somehow contain information on how you can use it to link up to the other table. For example, you see here now that we have order data set, which is the one I just opened. We also have other items. We also have other reviews, products, geolocation, customer data. And I have already shared with you this entity relationship diagram, which is like the map. If you don't find, you will not always get a beautifully designed visual like this. It can come in form of a file on its own, right? It can come in form of a file on its own, like a list of tables that shows the different tables that exist within the database, the ID column. The ID column is the one that you use to connect. For example, the file we just opened is the orders dataset, which is this red one. You can see it's colored red, right? For a reason, I'll explain that later on. Now, how do you link this table with the other tables? Like this one, this one, this one, this one. It's through the ID, the order ID. For example, this order ID, for me to connect to reviews, a review is valid only if it's related to a particular order, right? That means the person must have come to make a purchase from you first, right? So using this common ID column, you'll be able to connect to the second one. If I open this order reviews dataset, you are going to see the table, the column that contains the review, the order ID, right? So that brings us to the first concept of primary key and foreign key. Let me open the order review. Where is that? So that brings us to the concept of and primary key and foreign key. It's opening up. Let's give it a moment. Okay, now what is a primary key and what is a foreign key? You can treat it as a primary key is a unique key that identifies every row in your data. Every table in any database will typically have a primary key. And what that primary key does is that every unique row in that table has its own unique number. Everything in this column, this very one, is unique. You cannot have a duplicate of that. That's what a primary key does for you. Now, what is a foreign key? A foreign key is another column within a table that lets you to connect that table to an external table, to another table. It's just like you are like an ambassador, right? So in this case now, for example, we have the order ID. This order ID is the foreign key of this table that lets us to connect to the table called orders dataset. Are you following? Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So the order, this very one, you can see that this review ID, the table name is called order reviews. That's the name of the table. Then we have a column called review ID. It identifies every individual row here in this table. This is a row, this is a row, and so on and so forth. Then order ID lets me connect this review table to the table that contains order. I will also find the same in other tables where there is a relationship between it and another table, right? Now I have brought in this table called, um, sorry, I'm not able to zoom within here. I don't know if you can still see my screen, but please bear with me. I've brought in this table called order, the order table. And this table is, you can see it as the fact table. Fact table is the table that contains the actual data. It's usually maybe the actual data that you'd want to analyze. For example, um, in this context of a marketplace, it usually revolves around orders. People are placing orders, people are fulfilling orders, and everything revolves around orders. So orders is the main table, it's like the meat of the data set. It's like the meat. So it's the fact table because that is the table that contains the main data you'll eventually analyze. So very soon we'll be talking about order, the amount, the quantity. They are all revolving around this table called order. Without an order being placed, there will not be any amount to analyze. There will not be any fulfillment to take place, and so on. So it's a fact table. And every other thing that comes is more like a proceed, something that comes as a result of um, the fact that an order has occurred, right? So those ones are now called dimensions. They are dimensions. They help us analyze. They add more granularity to the facts. Because if you just have a fact table, you may not be able to tell. Okay, maybe which customer, which location, and so on. The fact table might not contain all those enrichments, but there are other dimension table like the table that contains list of customer records, customer locations, reviews, and every other thing. They help nourish the fact table further. So this is our fact table, only that it has been broken down for simplicity into additional tables. For example, here you have the order ID, right? You have the customer ID, which connects you to the names of the customers that fulfill that place the order. We have the status of the order, whether it has been delivered, whether it's still pending, and so on. We have the timestamp, the date and time the order was placed, approved at when it was approved, when it was delivered to the carrier, when it was delivered to customer, and estimated delivery date. That means at the time the order was placed, there was an estimated date that they typically, in an ideal scenario, maybe you are somewhere in Nairobi and you want to place, you are somewhere outside Nairobi and you are placing an order for something that will be shipped from Nairobi. They would estimate that this will arrive in 3 days. But somehow it might arrive a day earlier or 3 or even 4 days later, right? But this is what the best case scenario would be. This is the ideal maybe delivery date based on expectation, baseline expectation. Now, this data now is looking all right, but not so all right because it's not yet looking furnished and polished rather. For example, you can see that here alone, this order ID, everything here matters. Let me show you. Um, the icon here, you can see ABC here with the name of the column. Then the other one is ABC. If I click on that ABC, you're going to see a drop down, and that drop down shows me different data types. This is the decimal number, whole number, percentage, duration, text, among others. So it's important to know in what data type your data should be in. Now in this case, this is order ID. So it's let's just leave it as normal plain text. So it's already in text format. You can see that text is the one that has the ABC. This one also has the ABC. This one also has the ABC. Now, timestamp. If I click on that, you can see something that looks like a calendar and a clock. I apologize again. You may not be able to see this unless you're on a laptop because I can't zoom here, right? I can't zoom within this place. But it tells you that this is a date time. Now, how is Power BI able to identify? Because Power BI already reads a sample of your data to infer, but it may not always be correct. But many of the cases it's right. It takes a chunk of your data. If you have a table that contains 1 million rows, it could pick about 1,000 rows out of it randomly and then see the data type that is most dominant. This one is also date time. So everything here is okay because it's in the right date time. Now the next thing we could do is maybe we could just go on to clean up the name, the other dates, like this one now, delivered. We could just transform it so that it looks a bit more furnished. Let's select this column, come to transform, come to format, and then maybe capitalize each word, right? Capitalize each word so that it's now leading with a capital letter, right? And then perhaps this one, we might choose between either converting this one to date time or to normal date or retaining it as date time. Now, date and date time are two different things. Date has just the day, year, and month, but date time contains the day, year, month, and also the time that the event took place. So for our order purchase timestamp, well, we might need it in date time because we would eventually use it to calculate total hours or total days it took for the order to be fulfilled later on. So we are better off leaving it as date time, right? We could also use something like order approval date to check. For example, management might want to know on average how many hours or days does it take for an order to be approved from the date it was placed. So we don't have much to do on this table. Let me bring another table. Okay, now you can see null, right? There's a null. That means the date is missing. So we'll come to that later on. Let me bring in the remaining tables, and I will do that very quickly. I already have the source. Go back to the source, and then so I will bring in the second table. Let's go back to our map. We just brought in this red one. Let's bring in the second one, which is list of order items. That's the table that contains the additional information like the actual name of the product. This is an order item. Yeah, this is. Then click on next. It connects, and then I would transform. So that one too also comes in. And then order item ID. This is the ID of the actual the ID of the order. That's the item in the order. For example, we have the order ID here. The order ID, an order can contain multiple products, right? An order can contain multiple products. So within it, we are still going to have to be able to tell which of the specific products that make up the order. For example, let me sort this table and show you. Let me sort it in ascending order. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for an order that has a repetition as to tell me that there are more than one product within it. I'm not sure I'm lucky now. Okay, so let's not dwell on that. Now the other things you find here are the product ID. The product ID identifies the specific product, right? That's the line item. So you can see this as each row here represents a particular line item. So if you place an order for 3 devices, maybe a MacBook, a, an iPhone, and what? A Nokia phone. All of them, the 3 of them will be classified as one order. But we will still be able to identify the line items that make up. So this table is representing one item for each. And then the product ID, the ID of the seller. It could be that more than one person fulfill. Maybe the person selling Nokia is different from the one selling Apple devices. So there are 2 persons fulfilling this now. And this table is supposed to identify each order, each seller, right? Then shipping limit date, then the price of the product, then the freight value. That's for shipping and logistics, right? Now this freight value is already in the right format. Okay, yeah, it's already in the decimal. Then price, yeah, but we can convert this to fixed decimal, yeah. Okay, it's already in fixed decimal number. I've converted it to fixed decimal number. Then I'll also do this one, fixed decimal number. That's the best to represent currency. Then these are already in their date time format, the shipping date. Then the product ID is just a text, so I may not have to worry about it. Now let me bring in the remaining one. So by the end of today, we would have achieved our purpose if we are able to understand the business case and also understand the data. That's the success criteria for today. So I think we're on track to meeting that. So the third thing here is what? Back to our map. The third thing here on the right is what? Okay, we've already brought in other items. The third one is order reviews. Okay, let me bring in that. Order reviews. Then I'll bring in the other ones before I continue with the explanation. So I'll bring in customer data sets, order payments. Okay, let me just order payments and customer data sets. Order payments. Okay, this 5 for now, then we'll proceed. I would do the transformation on this 5, then we'll proceed. Then we've already handled others data set. We'll still get back to that for some cleanup. Other items, order reviews. We already have the review ID, the order ID, review score. That's your 5-star reviews. We are all familiar with this. If you're using Android phone, they will always Play Store will always ask you for feedback, 1 to 5, depending on how your level of satisfaction using the app. Review comments title might not be so useful to us. Review comments message. If you want to see the specific message, and you can use these fields to do things like maybe if you want to see sentiment analysis, which is also possible, also as part of data analysis, whereby you want to see how people perceive you, right? So if you are getting something negative sentiments, it means that your perception about what they have about your service, it's a sign of bad customer experience. If you are receiving something around the midpoint, which is around clustering around 0, then well, you are just fulfilling the bare minimum. But if you are getting something in the positives here, then you have good customer satisfaction rate, and you should do your best to maintain it, to improve it, right? So these are answer timestamp, review creation date, review comment message. Well, these are just for reviews if you want to do sentiment analysis. Customer data set is where you find the customer ID. Already remember that this is identifying each customer by each row represents a unique customer, right? You have records related to customer ID, the unique ID of the customer, the the zip code prefix, the city of the customer, the state where they live, right? So that's what this table holds. Then this payment is the one that contains the actual numbers, right? The actual values. So you have your payment value, installments, payment type, payment sequential, and other. Now the thing is this: how do you now know what each of these columns represent? How would you know that? That's where documentation comes in. Documentation and understanding the data is very, very important because it's the management, the organization that knows what each one represents. And sometimes there could be another factor playing out here. For example, management, the people fulfilling the sales team, they could just be using a tool like ERP. ERP does not, the table, the columns, or and the names of the fields that they see in the user interface of the app may be different from what you see in the database, right? So, but how do you now know what these things represent in real sense? You know them by going to the documentation. If it is a custom application built by the company, definitely the development team should be able to know what each of these represents. If it is an enterprise tool like Sage that we just covered, then you will be able to find, you would most likely find the data, the record, that's the documentation somewhere. Now let me show you an example. This is I don't know if I'll be lucky now to find this. Let me try. Sage. Sage 300. So you see all this, and somehow you'll be able to perhaps read more about it and even download more concise data. Or you could be handed over the a document, basic information system, just a document that contains basic information about the platform, about the software, right? The tables, what each table represents, right? Among others. From there, you can learn more about the data. But for our sake, for this very project, the data is from Kaggle. You can see it from here and look at all the tables we're interacting with, the 9 of them, the customer's data set. Let's look at what each column represents. You can come here and read column. Read about the data set first. This data set has information about the customer, its location, and its location. Use it to identify unique customers in the orders data set and to find order delivery location. So now, each order is assigned to a unique customer ID. This means that the same customer will get different IDs for different orders. The purpose of having a customer unique ID on the dataset is to allow you to identify customers that made repurchases at the store. Otherwise, you would find that each order had a different customer associated with it. Now, you can read more about it here. You can come here and see the different columns, right? These are just additional information. For example, the customer ID here is the key to the orders data set. Each order has a unique ID called customer ID. So this is like a foreign key, right? Then the unique identifier of a customer. The definitions of the different tables. First 5 digits of customer zip code, not the full zip code. City name of the customer. So this is how you get to know what each of these represents. There are times when you see it as more like a jargon, gibberish. It doesn't make sense. So you need to come back here and rename it into something more appropriate. If I double click here, I can expand this and edit it, right? I can type into this field and edit it, right? Now, also, let's rename this one to payment type. Something that looks more presentable, payment type, right? Then, as I'm doing that, kindly be taking note of what is happening at this side of my screen because it tells you something. Payment installments. Okay, let me just rename this to payment installments and remove the underscore there so that your dashboard does not look so rough. Now, payment value. Payment value is the actual figures. I'll remove this, or I can just call it maybe payment value. You can also call it amount, right? Then this one called order ID. This one order ID. I may not bother about renaming it because for most cases I will just need it just to join the tables. It may not eventually present on my dashboard. Now, why I told you to, okay, before I do that, let me convert, still take note of what is here. You can see source, promoted headers, changed column names, column type, and renamed column. These are 4 steps I've applied so far. Now, let me apply the 5th step and I'll come back to this place and let you know what it does. This is a credit card. And you can see that there's always an underscore, right? Which doesn't really look nice. If I want to see all the unique data in this column, I can click here and I can see it in this filter. If I click here to load more, it will load for me all the unique values. We have boleto, credit card, debit card, not defined, and voucher. So each of these ones, the first one is that they are in lowercase. The second one is that there's an underscore separating each 2 words. This is more friendly when you are dealing with database, but then we are now in the visualization layer and it doesn't really make much sense for us as humans. So we need to handle that. I'll come here. How do I do that? The first thing I want to do is to replace those underscores. I want to remove those underscores. So I've selected the column, then I'll go to transform data, and then what do I do? I can replace value. Where is that? Replace values. If I click on that, I click on replace values, and what is the value I want to replace? I want to replace underscore. Anywhere I see underscore in that column, I will represent it with what? Empty space. I just typed in an empty space here. So you can see that the underscore is gone. Now the next thing to handle is, let me make it capital letter for each. That's each word. Click on format, capitalize each word. So it now looks more presentable. Credit card, boleto, and so on. So that's it's already cleaned. Now, if you were observant, you see that steps I apply are recorded here. That's why I said that you don't go straight into modifying the raw file they gave to you, because you want to protect the integrity of the file, number one. You want to also have a backup in case anything goes wrong. Number two, you also want to, thirdly, also want to preserve the steps you've taken. For example, it could be that the data set you're working on today, tomorrow if you ship this very file to somewhere else and the name of the file changed, you may not want to go back again and still repeat the same thing you've done. No. This is mapping to you all the steps we've taken. The first step we took was to connect to a source. Now, if I click on this gear icon next here, you are going to see that everything we did is traceable back to. If I click on here, I click on browse, I can come here and go back to a different file and change it, right? And all the steps I have applied will be retained for me. After that, I promoted, okay, this was an automatic action. Okay, wait, just watch. When I brought in the file, the first rows, the first one said column names have named column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Instead of this one here, order ID, payment sequential, payment type, being the column name. So Power BI automatically promoted it so that this first one here, first row here, became the first column. That's what happened here. You can see that on this second step, it's gone. It's now the actual column names. Then changed column types. These were Power BI doing it automatically for me. So it's even a lifesaver. I did not do it. Okay, it was only payment value that I modified myself, but every other thing, order ID, payment sequential, and the rest was applied automatically by Power BI. And each of those steps were saved for me. Then when I renamed the names, the columns, and replaced values, and so on, each of those steps were saved for me, right? So that those are part of the data transformation process, the steps you took in transforming the data, so that even if you wake up tomorrow or next week, you click on this file and maybe you're pointing into a different file, it's going to all your history of transformations you've done to your data are retained. Tomorrow, if anything changes, you don't start afresh, you just come back. I can move these steps around. I can move this one to this I can move this one to here first. Okay, it broke because I think the column payment type of the table was not found. Okay, yes, I said capitalize each word. Well, I think it can break depending on, but the idea is that you can bring a step before the other, right? And all your steps are traceable. So far, I think we've made progress with how we can bring in the data, how you can, you know. Now, another thing that is not looking so nice here is customer state. We can just rename it to state, since we already know that this table is for customer. Rename this one to city. Rename this one to, okay, zip code, customer zip code, customer zip code prefix. I may not want to change this because this is going to be our ID. We're going to use this into map to the geolocations data, which contains the actual longitude and latitude of the customer. Then unique ID. These three are unique ID keys. Now here, Franca, this is the name of a state, and it's not looking nice. Let's do the same transformation we did before. Yeah, confirm that it follows a pattern. Okay, so we go here, transform it, format it, and capitalize each word. All right. So at this point, I would like to know if we are still together and if you have any question. Hello.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Kenneth. I believe that we've gotten to learn a lot, especially as it has to do with preparing data and the introduction to Power BI. And I'm sure we have questions to ask, certain things that might look overwhelming at the moment. So if you do, kindly indicate by raising your virtual hands up.
Let's see if any hand is up. Okay. So someone's hand is up, I guess. If you have any question, please unmute and then ask your question.
Questions, kindly unmute and proceed.
If I'm being too fast, you can also draw me back. Maybe I would be more patient.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, please, I just wanted to ask a question. I think I got a bit confused when you were defining primary key and foreign key.
Okay.
I got the definition of the foreign key that you said that what helps you to connect the table to another table. But the primary key, I don't think I really got what you said there.
Okay. Thank you. Primary key, I'll come again, is what lets you, primary key is what lets you identify every row in a particular table. It's unique to the table itself. For example, this is customers data set. The primary key here identifies every column in this table. Every row. Maybe I should have started by telling you the difference between a column and a row. In a table is mostly, this is a plain two-dimensional this thing. We have the columns here and the rows. The columns represent the attributes of a particular record. The rows represent a record itself. For example, a complete record of a customer is the ID of the person, where they stay, where they live, the state, the zip code, right? That's the record. So the primary key identifies every record in a table, and it is unique to that table. Is that clear? On the other hand,
Yes.
a foreign key identifies records in another table. It may or it may not be unique. So if I have this column called customer ID, I expect to have unique value. You can see that this gibberish here is already a way to make sure that it's an automatically generated figure. Maybe your first customer is customer number 1. Second customer is customer number 2. We can never have one person we can never have two IDs identifying the same person. If that happens, then that's duplicates. That's when you're talking about the primary key, right? That means primary key identifies a record in a table. It's unique to each record. And I've already mentioned that a record is like a row here, right? But foreign key, on the other hand, can be unique, but it cannot also not be unique. For example, customer zip code prefix. You would find out that there could be, okay, let me sort this so that you see. Let me sort it in ascending order. I have sorted it in ascending order. You can see that number 2, this person, this ID, and this ID are the same, because it is a natural thing to have more than one customer coming from the same location. So each person here, but this one here is unique. You can see that this is different from this. Are you getting it? But they are the same here. So this is the foreign key that points to the locations, that's the zip code, which we are going to use to connect to the locations table. And then this is the primary key that identifies the records themselves. Each one is unique. Is that clear now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So any other question? I think we are 7 minutes to the end of this session. Okay, it seems like there's no other question. So I will just take the remaining minutes to bring in the remaining files, and we'll mark it as a traction for today's class. So bring in the other files. Sellers. I'll bring in the sellers. There are customers and there are sellers. So load. Also bring in this one. We have the geolocation, which is the largest file. I'll load it. Then what's the other one? I do not know if I sellers, location, other customer, other item, product. Okay, I think product is what is remaining. Yes, I have them now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One is still missing. Product category translation. I'll bring that in, and that will be the final one for now. So with this, I have the 9 tables, right? Let me just do the remaining cleanup. Now, we are lucky enough that Power BI was not smart enough to promote headers in this case. You can, if you are very attentive, this product, this first row is supposed to be the actual column name. So how do you do that if Power BI fails to do it for you? Well, very easy. Come here, click on this drop down, this this thing that looks like a table. Then you see use first row as header. The interesting thing about Power BI is that it allows you to do your analysis, cleaning, and everything without having to write extensive code. If you are coming from the coding background, you will notice that all these things to achieve any of these steps requires you to write code. But here you just click on buttons. So let's rename this to product category. Category name. Okay, let's leave it as. Oh, sorry, I think I should not even change this one. I would eventually drop it. I'll use it as key table. So I would rename this one to product category because this one is the one in English, which is what we're going to use eventually. Product category. I don't need to put English again, right? Yeah, then also I would clean this up so that the underscores are removed and the data looks more presentable. Click here once again, transform and format, then capitalize. Oh, sorry, yeah. It's already capitalized. Let me remove the underscore. Replace value. Place values. So I'll place underscores with what? An empty space. Yeah, so that looks clean. So we are basically repeating what we've done before. Go back to product data set and then product category name. This product category name is what lets us to eventually, this is going to serve as this is our foreign key to this table called product category name translation, right? So it lets us connect to this key. If you come to this products data set, you'll identify different products and their unique IDs. But with this, they are not in English. I think they're in Spanish. So this is what we now use to connect to that table. So I don't need to change it. I don't need to also change this first one, product ID, because I would not expose them in the final visualization. Then product name length. These ones are not necessary. So I can product name length, product description length, product photos quantity, product weight, product length in centimeter, product height. I don't need this. I don't need this, to be honest with you. Depending on what you are trying to do. These are mostly what the database use in performing, maybe determining the cost of shipping and every other thing. I don't need them. So I've deleted them. I just selected them and clicked on delete. So it's gone. They are all gone. I'll clean up this one. Okay, I don't need to clean up this one. Now, there are two tables that don't really look nice. We have the product ID and the product ID category. So it seems like there's no really reasonable column in this table, but that's not the case, because if I come to this is the table that lets me to map to complete the journey. If I come back here, this table called products, right? It's from here that I'll be able to trace my step. Okay, this product ID connected to other items, right? Then products category name in English is continuing the journey, mapping directly to this one. So from here, I'll be able to trace the journey down to items and then down to orders and then down to the amount. If I stretch it from here, through here, through here, through here, I have a continuity somehow, right? The product, the order, items, that's the line items, the order, that then the payment. So that's what the pattern could look like. So we've already exhausted the time. So the remaining part of the session, I'll just use it to clean up. Okay, the city name, I will just do that very quickly so I can end the call. Transform, format, and capitalize it, right? And then city. Well, the most important table here, the most important column in this table is that we have the prefix, which is what we use to connect each of these prefix to their corresponding latitude and longitude. This is the column, the kind of combination used in plotting your maps. It identifies every coordinate as much precisely as possible, right? So that's it. And then with this, you'll be able to finish up, and then eventually you click on load. Let me just finish it so you see the full picture. I'll click on close and apply, and Power Query has disappeared. I now have just one window, and my transformation is applying, right? So this is how I finally bring in my data to Power BI. So tomorrow we'll continue the journey. So you will see what happens. So at each point in this class, always ask yourself, what next? Then we've done this, what next, right? We'll be able to explore why we have all these many icons that you can click, why we have all these ones, different views, what each of these represents, and how you finally establish. We just talked about primary key and foreign key. How in context do you now finally establish that relationship between the tables, right? We'll be able to do that one tomorrow. But we've achieved the goal for the day, which is understanding the business, the problem, and then the data. So we'll continue the journey tomorrow. So thank you very much for your time. And though we've spent 3 minutes beyond the time, we would leave like the remaining 2 minutes in case anyone has question to ask. So thank you so much. So it's taking its time to load. So we are now in the question and answer session for the day. Okay, Kingsley, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Kenneth. I'm sure participants to what you've worked them through and why they don't, have questions. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us today and participating in this session. And most especially, thank you to Kenneth who facilitated this session. I hope that we found today's session very useful and we've learned new things. We are going to share a post-session form so that you can, share experience and we can adjust to serve you. So please, Abdul Rahman, I can see your hands up. You want to say something?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Um, Please, I would like to ask if this data analytics database system can be applied in the field of surveying and geoinformatics. In what way?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Yes, and I remember when I started, I mentioned the fact that analytical skill is a soft skill that can apply across board. It can apply, you can apply it in different fields. Anywhere data exists, you can apply analytics to the data. It doesn't matter. Data can come in form of geoinformatics. We just the data we're working on is just giving you a clue that geoinformatics records are still some records for filling up rows and columns. For example, we already started with the geolocation data, right? Which contains information related to
Okay.
locations. So depending on what exactly you want to achieve, and you would also find different other platforms that allows you. We have Google. There's this Google platform for getting satellite records, right? Those satellite records eventually translate into rows and columns of data, right? Which you can use to plot whatever visualization. I have lost track of the actual names for these things, but they exist for sure. Anywhere data exists, you can analyze it. You can use it to analyze it. Only that the tool might differ. You might not use Power BI in that case, right?
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful presentation.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, a post-session survey form will be shared with you, and the tasks for you guys to work on would also be shared on the group as well. I want to believe that everyone here has joined the WhatsApp group chat. I will take that as a yes. So, thank you once again for joining, and we look forward to seeing what you build. Have a great evening and bye bye.
All right, see you tomorrow. Yeah, for someone asking, the video will be made available. Yes, we would share the video. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, bye.